Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Karina Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're just going to do another Velocity Banking review. So, what is Velocity Banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy where you throw all of your money into debt, kind of like this paycheck right here. And believe it or not, this is actually a rent check from a tenant. This is 2024, 14 grand. You ever have a tenant just give you a 14 grand check? I've had it happen to me several times. And yeah, it feels kind of strange? I don't know how to really describe it. Surreal. It's like, oh, if a tenant gives me a 14 grand check again, it's like, whatever, just another day, right? And that's what happens when you're debt free as well. You just, it's whatever, stress free, debt free. You kind of live the opposite life of the average modern American. And what I mean by that is like, if I go on YouTube, and if you've never seen this dude, Jack Morgan, basically all he does is compilations, and it's pretty sick. Like in the sense that, like, man, modern life ain't it. You know what I mean? But he does a lot of reactions and compilations. Carpour, modern life is designed to break you. Inflation is really effing everything. Gen Z is happy about the economy crashing. So I can't imagine if this is what quote the new normal is today, how stressful life would be. And one of the reasons why life is so stressful is because even if people make good income, they're full of debt. Okay. And kind of like this. Okay. So here we're just going to go over a scenario where people are making good money and they're broke because they got too much debt. 10 credit cards, a personal loan, auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage. And actually, let me zoom this up. Okay. Zoom in on this. And You know, here's how I present velocity banking because it really is just throwing all of your money into debt, right? One of the things that I would do is I would just hide this and not even mention velocity banking and just say, hey, let's say you're making all this income, okay? And you have all this debt. Okay, you got 10 credit cards, you got loans, you got mortgage, and pretty cheap mortgage at that, 2.5%. And you're negative $421 a month, 56 cents left over. Is there any way you can get out of this without making more money? And pretty much every single person that you know will say you should make more money, or making money is pretty much the only way to get out of it. Win the lottery, right? And what we're going to do is kind of not necessarily make more money, have the same expenses, and all velocity banking is redirecting that flow of money, right? So redirecting that flow of money. And what's the first step to doing velocity banking? Well, it's essentially not saving money rebranded, right? It's very important, whether this is negative or positive, that you're very intentional about this not saving money thing, okay? And so we're going to have a number called cash flow, which is going to look the same in the beginning, but has the ability to increase if you had something called a line of credit. So, what's a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So, a credit card is a line of credit. But did you know there's something called a home equity line of credit or a personal line of credit? And I have this $280,000 home equity line of credit. So, what does that mean? I go to the bank's website, click a button, and then it'll dump up to $280,000 into my checking account. Really easy, right? $280,000 into the checking account, and they'll charge me a 7.5% interest rate. Okay, so that's basically what the HELOC um, allows me to do, and I can use it to pay anything and everything, right? And so let's assume we have access to a $200,000 home equity line of credit at a 10% interest rate. Okay. I've had different home equity lines of credit. Right now, my current interest rate is 7.5%. I had at 9, 10 variable, right? So 10, I think, is a conservative interest rate. And we're gonna assume it's free and clear. Okay. And I know that some of you are watching these videos and thinking like, could I get a free and clear line of credit if I'm on all this debt? And to the answer to that is probably no. And I'm going to tell you how I know this and how I know the secret. And you see the secret right here. Banks don't lend money to people who need it. You see, if you know that secret, then you could possibly, I'm not saying you will be like me, where I have over $594,000 of lines of credit. $594,000. And people try to comment on my channel that I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's cool. If I don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm a person who doesn't know what I'm talking about with $594,000 in lines of credit. Okay, I am the same person who paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. So, if I don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm a person who doesn't know what I'm talking about with a mortgage paid off in 2 years and 9 months and $594,000 in lines of credit. See how it works? So, I don't even care if I'm right. Talk about the results. Don't talk about, too many people, they think this is like debate class. It's like, well, let me tell you why you're wrong. And then, I've checked out and just kind of done the thing that I said I was gonna do. Right. So that's the big problem with most people. They think that by arguing with you, that's somehow gonna, affect whether you're gonna do the thing or not. And hey, if I'm wrong, I'll just tell you I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? All right. So, yes, I did pay off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. You go ahead, stare at that. Um, all right. Well, I don't even know what I'm talking about here. All right. So, secret of getting lines of credit is that banks don't lend money to people who need it. And if you need money and you go to a bank, they'll be like, no thanks. Okay. So, let's go ahead and try to pay off the debt. So, by consolidating some debt and moving into the line of credit, even though we're not making more money, we can increase this cash flow number. Whereas if we did banking the average American way, which is just use our checking account to pay for things and leave the leftover in savings, then we're screwed. Okay. So let's go ahead and move some debt into the line of credit. And the easiest way to figure out which debt to move is using something called the cash flow index. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a formula of the balance divided by the loan payment, and then you get this arbitrary number. And the lower the number, the better. So think of this as like a ranking system. So what we're going to do is take all of these numbers in the 20s and 30s and then move them into the line of credit. And if I recall correctly, this is $167,000 of credit card debt. So let's go ahead and move that $167,000 of credit card debt. And just by simply moving the debt, guess what happens here? Oh my goodness. Zero, 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 zero. You see, I'm not even that excited because I've done this a million times. So I know, if this is like your first time watching this, it's kind of like that M. Bison speech from Street Fighter 2, the movie, or no, not Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter, the movie, where he was like, you know, the day that Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday, right? And well, today's technically Saturday, but going from negative 400 to $4,924 with the same income, oh, it's just Tuesday for me. Now, the final step is you put your entire paycheck, the entire 10 grand into that line. Okay. Just make an overpayment, but you don't need to save money. And then you take your expenses out and then you rinse and repeat over and over again. And then once you do that, then the balance of the loan, or I'm sorry, the line of credit will go down by the cash flow minus some interest. Okay. And let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to just show you right here. We're going to take the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus whatever the cash flow number is. Okay. It is 4924.27. Okay. So let's go ahead and copy that. All right. So now to get the previous month's balance, okay, it basically equals G2 plus H2 minus. So to get the next month's balance, to get the next month's balance is the previous month's balance interest minus the cash flow, the current cash flow. And then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, because that's how you get the interest for the month. But don't worry, you don't have to pay $164,000 of interest. That'd be insane. Multiply it by the interest rate. And don't worry, you're not paying 16 grand of interest per month. And then you divide it by 12, which is 1 grand a month. Okay. So now look at that. Paycheck in, expenses out, paycheck in, expenses out. Do you think reducing the debt would be possible if you're doing banking the average American way, given that you have the same income, right? You'd just be in the negative. You'd be screwed after 1 month, and then you'd be getting all these harassment calls about how you're a deadbeat and you have to pay your debt. Whereas here, we're reducing the debt. Okay, we're reducing the debt. So let's go ahead and do that. and then I'm just gonna go here and right, and then hold on. All right, so copy and paste, and let's see when all this credit card debt is paid off at 40 months, 40 months. And so let's go ahead and record our milestone, which is 40 months and then 167K. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then now we have 4 more debts. And by the way, anything that's not a debt, you just kind of put in the last line item, combine them. It doesn't really matter. It's just your average non debt expenses. In the business world, we call them operational expenses, right? I think that's what we do. Food, gas, insurance, all the good stuff. We'll say 2,600 a month. And then let's where are we? We're at month 40. So what we do is we have this loan calculator right here, very fancy schmancy pantsy. I just type in, okay, what month we're at, and then I'm gonna do that. And then you could see right here, again, cash flow index, take these loan numbers. So what I'm gonna do is take both of these, okay, and then I'm going to sum them up. So that's about 13 grand. Okay, I'm going to copy the 13 grand and move it into the line of credit. So that's the personal and the auto loan. So let's go ahead and move it into the line of credit plus 13809.52. And then this, guess what happens to these payments? They go to 0, 0, 0. And then now we have $5,483 of cash flow a month. Okay, 5,800 something of cash flow. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this, and then now update our cash flow, which is 5,483.63. Okay, all right, and then we see that in 2 months those 2 loans are paid off. So 43 months. Okay, so let's go here. And 43 months. And that's going to be 167 plus 10 plus 23, which is going to be 200K. Okay. All right. So now let's go here and then, okay. So now in 43 months, we got to figure out what the balance of the student loan and the mortgage is. So this is 0, 0. This is going to be 43, 43. And then again, let's use that cash flow index, lowest number. And also the range of the number is important, but I think I'll be fine moving this 57 grand into the line of credit. So let's go ahead and do that. Move that 57 grand. And then I'm going to go right here, Control V, and then do this. This is going to be plus 57484.75. Okay. And what's our new cash flow? So we get an extra $928 back into cash flow. And then 6 grand is our cash flow right here. And look at that. Negative 421 to 6,000. Beautiful. And you know, in an ideal world, we always want to increase our income, right? We always want to increase that income. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then, all right. So now let's do this. This is going to be 6412.5. And then, all right, we see that in 52 months, it's all paid off. Okay. 52 months. And then this is going to be 280K. All right, so now the only debt left we have is the mortgage, okay? And I'm going to show you something really, really cool that you've probably never seen if you're a real estate investor or if you're thinking about investing in real estate. So I got a 2-acre farm, and my 2-acre farm is where my tenant literally gave me 14 grand, and it's just prepaid rent up front to live there. 2 acres, very beautiful, love it, love it. It has like 4 Roku TVs now, affixed to the walls, and you know, my own personal home, I don't even have TV, but I do have computers, and just relax, stress free. But what if you wanted to be a housing provider, right? Rental property owner? Well, If you didn't know, okay, I'm just going to show you this. Um, Bigger Pockets blog cash flow good. Okay. So you can see right here in the biggest real estate investing website on the internet's good cash flow is only 100, $200 a month. Good. And notice how the goods in quotes. So, real estate as an asset has some severe disadvantages that most people don't really want to admit because, rich dad, poor dad, Robert Kiyosaki is always talking about cash flow. Now, if you don't have debt, the cash will flow, right? It's like the movie Dune, was it something will flow, the spice will flow, right? Same thing with rental properties. No debt, the cash will flow. So let's go ahead and get a rental property and pay off our debt. I'm going to tell you something about rental property, right? You always want to buy it at a discount, right? So if you have a $300,000 property, you don't want to buy it for 300,000. You want to buy it for 200 or 150, right? And the easiest way to do that is find a distressed seller. That's all it is. And you might say, you make it seem like it's so easy. Well, yeah, you just send maybe, I don't know, 10 letters a week. And then if you know where to look, which, some people will tell you if you know where to know, you can just kind of buy a property like this, right? And so let's go ahead and do this and be a rental property real estate investor and not aim for pathetic $200 a month of cash flow, especially if we're going to hold it for 30 years. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this and buy that rental property for a line of credit. And we'll say all in, including repairs, it'll be a $300,000 property for $200,000. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm just going to outright buy it. Now, some people ask me like whether it's better to get a mortgage or just outright buy it with a line of credit. I can't answer that question for you because it's up to you. But me personally, again, I'm not giving you any financial advice because that's not what I do here. Me personally, I'd still get the mortgage. I'd still get the mortgage because if you buy a house outright, let's say $200,000 house outlined with a line of credit, what if you need that money for emergencies, right? You don't want to just kind of throw all of your eggs into one basket, right? So again, we got to be strategic about moving debt into the line of credit. That's just my opinion, but you do whatever you want. And if anybody asks me advice on the channel, like what do I do? I'll just roll my eyes and then and then this is what I'll do. I'll actually just stare at this check, right? And I'll like I don't really care, you know, or I'll stare at my mortgage paid off in 2 years and 9 months. Okay, it's funny like people want your help and then say, okay, well, the thing that as a person that I struggle with is finding people who are serious. It really is. And if you have no skin in the game, then you're not going to do what it is that you say you're going to do. And that's why, I'm actually willing to pay people to do their job. Like I'm not trying to save or, what's it called? Be cheap because whoever I'm working with, right? I want them to know I value them, and if they're the one who screws off with my money, then it's their loss because they're never gonna find a buyer like me, right? That's just how I think. So if you're trying to like skimp out on me and not pay, then it's not gonna be a coincidence. I'm gonna check out with you, folks. Let me just give you like the ultimate way hack of getting people want to work with you. Pay them really quickly, okay? And I know that you think you're being smart, just like most people think they're being smart for, like, saving money, right? There's a lot of dumb people that people think is smart, but is actually harming them. I probably need to come up with a list, but my thing that I like to talk about is, like, learn how to be don't learn like, learn how to be a good customer, don't be a dumb customer, okay? Like, don't be like, "Oh, I want you to do all these things, and then I'm not gonna pay you," right? And even though I don't need the money, you see, this is why I like working with banks because banks will work with me because I don't need their money, yet the average person thinks the opposite. And then and then thinks like, I need their money, which I don't. But what I need is for you to have some skin in the game. Anyways, all right, so let's go ahead and buy that rental property for 200,000 all in. And but here's the cool thing, right? Because now we got the tenant's income, right? So what's the market rate of rent at that area? We'll just say $2,000. Okay, $2,000. But here's the other thing too, you don't get the whole 2,000, right? Because 30% goes to expenses, so you just multiply 70%, and that's a generalization. Some markets, even if you pay all cash, I think you'd still negative cash flow, and the only reason why you buy it is because the appreciation is so high. All right, but our cash flow is now 7,812. So let's go ahead and figure out how long it's going to take us to pay off our first rental property. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do this. So it'll be 7812.5. And then I'm going to copy and paste. And again, it's all, it's the same principle of just dumping all of our money into debt. And then you see that in 81 months, okay, 81 months, assuming we had a tenant pretty much throughout the from fifth month 52 to month 81. How much is that? 81 minus 52. That's 29. And then 29 divided by 12. Whoa, we paid off a rental property in 2.42 years. Amazing. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. I mean, and then, you just rinse and repeat with rental property 2 and 3, buy it at a discount, get a tenant in there, cash flow. Okay. You just, and that's it. That's how I got my farm. Really. Got a tenant to pay me 14 grand up front. Pretty sweet, right? And then now I have I have a farm that I bought at a almost $100,000 discount, right? Almost. Okay. All right. All right. Well, this is Cranial Anta mentorship, and what does this mean? Oh well, I'm gonna delete this. All right. So this is the Velocity Banking Kool-Aid. Maybe I could make a drink out of it, but I think if I use the words Kool-Aid, that's probably a no-no because it's trademarked. Okay. And then this is Velocity Baking Crack. So it's like, what kind of merchandise can I come up with? Velocity Banking Crack and Velocity Banking Kool-Aid. That'll be pretty cool. Anyways, all right. Well, that's it for today, folks. So this is just a preview of what could be a possibly debt-free and stress-free life. And look at that sweet, sweet cash flow. Think about what would happen if we had 2 or 3 more rental houses, and then our cash flow within about 10 years would explode. And not only that, we'd probably have $1 million of equity. That's the crazy part, right? So you got like $1 million of cash flow throughout the life of the debt, and you're not the $100 to $200 a monthly cash flow. That's good. You're not aiming for that. You're aiming for 1700 per house. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today. This is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. Have a happy Saturday, and I'll see you all in the next video, which may be today. Who knows? If I'm in the mood, if I'm in my farm, my 2-acre farm. Okay. Well, good day, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.